Chief in Washington for NewsNation. Today, we are following the two votes in the House of Representatives pushed through by Democrats on the issue of abortion. These are the first major votes in the House of Representatives, or in Congress for that matter, since Roe versus Wade was overturned last month in a shockwave ruling, a landmark ruling led by Samuel Alito and other conservative justices in that 5-4 majority to overturn 6-3 to uphold the Mississippi case that was at the basis of the court's ruling on Roe versus Wade. So what the House did today, they voted 219 to 210 to essentially codify Roe versus Wade nationally. And then just moments ago, they voted to ensure that individuals who are seeking an abortion could not be penalized by states that bar abortion if they travel to a state where abortion is still legal. And remember, that's essentially what the Supreme Court did. They kicked it back to the states to allow states essentially individually to make up their mind about their laws and policies and restrictions on abortion. It's important to remember that these votes in the House of Representatives, while a major boost in a political sense for Democrats, and certainly Democrats wholeheartedly behind the substance of these bills to both, again, to codify Roe and to beat back efforts by states and abortion opponents to stop people who are seeking abortions to travel to states where they can get one. It's important to remember that this is unlikely to go anywhere in the United States Senate. It's a familiar story on many of these hot button issues that are so important to Democrats. And of course, Roe versus Wade and the future of abortion rights in this country is right at the top of the list since that landmark ruling in the Supreme Court. The Senate, as we all know, the procedures there require 60 votes to move something like this, to move any controversial legislation forward. The votes are simply not there. This is all around the rules, around the filibuster, which I think everybody is familiar with right now. But again, House Democrats pushing with their still slim majority in the House, hanging on tenuously until the November elections when Democrats are expected to lose control of the House, but pushing through this legislation now to ensure that try to ensure that Roe becomes the national law of the land and not just a state-by-state patchwork, and also that women have the ability to travel to states where abortion is still legal if they seek abortion services. This all against a backdrop of tremendous upheaval within the Democratic Party and around the country. From a cold-eyed political sense, this is a political winner heading into November for Democrats. At least that's the conventional wisdom, to motivate Democrats who are having sort of an enthusiasm gap with Republicans heading into November. But look, this is the reason why we have elections, right? These hot button issues, these core issues that people are very passionate about, and certainly the Supreme Court delivering a stunning victory to anti-abortion activists and those who oppose abortion in their ruling. There's pressure by Democrats on the president to declare a so-called national health emergency that would free up, for example, doctors themselves to travel to conduct abortions and would loosen some of the restrictions, however, incrementally. There is an internal debate in the White House now whether or not this can be done effectively. I think a lot of senators, we know a lot of senators, several of them like Senators Padilla from California, Senator Warren from Massachusetts, signed on to a letter to the president asking him to take that step. Meanwhile, in Texas, we have the state attorney general there, Ken Paxton, filing a lawsuit against the administration, which essentially says, the administration says that women who are in a hospital, who are in danger of losing their lives because of complications to their pregnancy, or other grave health matters related to pregnancy, the guidance from the Health and Human Services Department says that abortions can be provided and performed in those circumstances within Texas or anywhere else around the country. And the conservative attorney general in Texas and other states are looking at it as well, suing the Department of Health and Human Services and the secretary there, Javier Becerra, to try to stop that from going forward. Meanwhile, the other front in this battle is the so-called medication, abortion pills, mifepristone being the principal one. The Department of Justice coming foursquare behind the idea that the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare, makes it clear that women have access, no matter where they live, to these pills. So in the wake of Roe versus Wade, we have the political movement going on, and we have the policy movement going on. House Democrats, in the full knowledge, and I mean, no one's pretending that this is going on anywhere in the Senate, but this is what they believe as a policy matter. This is what helps them as a political matter, pushing through these two measures today in the House of Representatives on a rare Friday session, pushing them through to demonstrate to their supporters and to express their own strongly held view that abortion should be legal, trying to do what they can to turn back that stunning ruling that actually, of course, has been coming down since the leak in May and then the ruling late last month that Roe versus Wade has been overturned. We have one question from a viewer. When do we expect the Senate to vote on this? We do not expect the Senate to vote on this. What we've already seen is efforts by Democratic senators to bring the bill to the floor of the Senate under what's known as unanimous consent. In other words, to consider the bill on the floor at that moment, which would require all 100 senators to go along with it. Republicans objected. That is sort of a demonstration, a gesture, a political gesture. Everybody understands that that's not going to happen. And so the Senate is unlikely to vote on it. Chuck Schumer would like to bring it up, but there would be a filibuster to even put it on the floor. It would require 60 votes in what's called a motion to proceed. I hate to bore everybody with Senate procedure. A motion to proceed on the Senate floor, they're not going to get that. And so a lot at stake here, but Mitch McConnell and the rest of the Republicans are not going to go along with even allowing these bills to see the light of day in the Senate. So again, House Democrats expressing their heartfelt view, no question, that this Roe versus Wade should be reinstated, and trying to pass a national law by passing the House of Representatives. Of course, it takes both houses of Congress to pass it and send it to the president, expressing their deeply held belief, no question, but also trying to find political benefit from this, heading into November in an election where Nancy Pelosi and House Democrats are expected to sustain considerable losses, lose the majority in the House of Representatives. And believe me, as someone who walked the halls of the House and worked out of the press gallery there for 11 years, I can tell you that no matter what we learned in Schoolhouse Rock or in civics class about the way the House works, the majority controls everything, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, and it's been that way since the 19th century in the time of Henry Clay. So a lot at stake here. House Democrats doing what they can. And, we haven't even talked about House Republicans. Obviously, strong opposition to these bills from House Republicans today on the floor of the House. All of them understanding that it's not going, on both sides of the aisle, understanding that it is not going to go anywhere in the Senate. And yet, good politics is good policy, as they say, and so and vice versa. And so that is the state of play right now. Another question we have from a viewer: are we still seeing protests in D.C. After the Supreme Court ruling? Absolutely, and still very controversial. The Congress did pass a bill to help beef up security for justices and their families. Every Wednesday night here in the Washington area, out in Chevy Chase, Maryland, which isn't that far, just over the line from the District of Columbia, where Brett Kavanaugh lives and Chief Justice John Roberts lived, Justice Kavanaugh and Chief Justice Roberts, protests every Wednesday night in front of Justice Kavanaugh's house, for example. And last night, a protest of a couple of dozen or perhaps 3 dozen protesters at the Virginia home of Amy Coney Barrett, and NewsNation cameras were there for that. Both jurisdictions, both states, Maryland and Virginia, have said that they will start enforcing a law that prohibits demonstrations such as these at the homes of jurists. And of course, there are no higher jurists than those that sit on the Supreme Court. There were no arrests on Wednesday night at Justice Kavanaugh's house. And to my knowledge, there were no arrests last night at Justice Coney Barrett's house as well. But those protests do continue. They're very controversial. And there is a great deal of question about the security of the judges and whether the propriety of these protests is something that should be supported. President Biden has actually expressed a lot of caution about them himself. And of course, the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, took sort of a different track recently when he defended the First Amendment rights of those people and those protesters who disagree with what those justices ruled in that landmark ruling. So that's what we have. That's the state of play today here in Washington on the volatile and very visceral question of abortion policy and the future of Roe versus Wade. Again, I'm Mike Vaquera, the bureau chief at NewsNation here in Washington. Thanks for watching.